Have you ever met someone who is so profoundly happy that you cannot help but smile while you listen to them? I just wrapped up an interview with Brian Chase of Bisnar Chase. He is, by far, one of the happiest people I have ever gotten a chance to interview. My favorite quote of his is, when he talks about the work that he does, is, "I love it. I cannot believe I get paid to do this." And this is after practicing law for 33 years. He runs a very successful law firm with 40 employees. They have done numerous 8 and 7-figure cases, recovered nearly $1 billion, and their success rate is 99%. And into this episode and learn from Brian, and maybe some of that happiness, if you need a little uplift, will rub off on you just like it did on me. Hi there. I have a small but really meaningful favor to ask you. I watch at the stats on our YouTube channel and Spotify channel, wherever most people listen and watch our podcast. And I see that over 80% of everybody who listens to it regularly is not a subscriber. I'm asking you to subscribe to this channel. And the reason for that is my mission and the mission of my team is to help as many small law firm owners to learn how to transform their law firms into better businesses, and so they in turn enjoy better lives. When you hit subscribe button, you tell these platforms that this is content worth listening, worth viewing, and they in turn will show it to many other small law firm owners and hopefully help me fulfill our mission of helping them create a better business and enjoy better lives. So would you please do me this favor? It would mean the world to me, and hit the subscribe button. And my promise to you is that I will continue to work hard at creating good content with practical ideas that help you and your teams grow better law firms. Thank you. Welcome to the GLF podcast. I have an amazing guest with me here today, Brian Chase.
Yeah.
He is an incredibly successful practicing attorney, a managing partner, a happy person. Before we hit the record button, I said that I was first introduced to you through a podcast by Mike Mogul, Crisp. And what really got my attention was when you said, and I quote, "I love it. I cannot believe I get paid to do this." And at the time of this recording, you've been practicing law for probably over 3 decades.
Yes.
That is so incredibly rare. Tell the audience what it is that gets you out of bed and just keeps you so happy and keeps you going for now so long.
Yeah. Well, Sasha, first, thank you for having me on your podcast. I enjoy many of your episodes and learn a lot from many of your guests. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. What fires me up today is the same thing that when I went to law school. On my law school application back in 1989, they wanted us to list 3 things. Why are we going to law school? And I was always not jealous, but envious of doctors because they can save a life. And I go, man, if what you do for a living, if you can save a life, that's amazing. And so one of the main drivers for me to go to law school, and it was to do personal injury litigation. I didn't fall into what I do. I wanted to help people that get in accidents. And I wanted my life's work to have a positive substantive impact on other people's lives. And so it does. And to this day, that's still something that drives me is if I'm suing an auto manufacturer or a pharmaceutical company and I've seen a family that's been destroyed, that just fires me up to get out of bed. And it still does to this day. And then the second thing is I put on there next was intellectual stimulation. I wasn't an intellectual as a kid. I was just a long-hair surfer having a good time. Long story, if we want to get into it later on how I decided to go to law school, I'm happy to go into that. But I got into being intellectually stimulated. So when I went to law school, positive impact on others' lives, intellectual stimulation. I mean, when I have to be in court on a big trial, or if I have a big deposition, or like you and I were sharing off the record last week, I had to get up at 3 or 3:30 in the morning because I had to go do something. The intellectual stimulation of having to do that just fires me up. And then the third thing was I wanted to make it a decent living. I didn't go to law school to make money. I didn't go to law school to be poor. But the driver that keeps me as happy today, 33 years later, as when I was going was I want my life's work to matter. It does. I've seen the changes in vehicles based on the auto defect stuff I and many, many others have done. I love that. Um, I love that the intellectual stimulation of the fight to go after engineers and depositions or whoever it is. You have to try to get up to speed at their level, at whatever their level of expertise is. And so when I do all of that, and at the end you get a good result, whether it's a settlement or a nice verdict, and you know you've taken care of a family. You know, I could have somebody in a wheelchair that was living in a second-story apartment and they couldn't even be out of their house. And then I get them, again, a settlement or a verdict. And with that money, we can go buy them a house. And we could buy a house with ramps without stairs, and we could widen doors. And you see how you can make somebody's life easier. I mean, there's nothing better for me than really doing that.
Sure. Truly life-changing.
It is. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, what we do, and when I say we, the personal injury attorneys, I mean, there's so many greats that preceded me and that I stand on their shoulders, and I've got some younger ones behind me standing on my shoulders. The other beautiful thing about this profession is we all share. It's not cutthroat. I mean, maybe there's some examples, but when we're going after, at least with me, when we're going after, a multi-billion-dollar auto corporation for, Takata for the defective airbags, for example, the Ford Firestone tire debacle. All of us lawyers are sharing information with the common goal of prevailing against this defendant and trying to get justice for hundreds, if not thousands of clients. So it's just really rewarding. I mean, I feel like I've got a national team of lawyers across the country, and we all help each other. Again, there's probably some examples where it doesn't go that way.
Sure. But an example that you just mentioned, Firestone tires, this is going back to, I think, late 90s.
Yeah, 99, 2000. Yeah.
I have a colleague, a friend of mine, Mary Grinnan, whose uncle had 7 kids, and his truck tire blew up and he died. And that was a Firestone tire.
Yeah.
Back in like 97, 96, somewhere thereabout.
Well, it wasn't. If you get into the weeds on it, there's so many protected documents, and it's been a while. I don't know what I can talk about or not talk about, but the story, I mean, Henry Ford and whatever Mr. Firestone's name was back in the day, they were family friends. And that litigation blew up that relationship. I mean, whoever the original Firestone guy was and Henry Ford, who started that relationship, it got wiped out with that litigation. And there are unclean hands on both sides when you see the internal documents of what happened and why those tires were having treads separate. They should have never been on the road. That's not just a plaintiff's personal injury attorney talking. If you got a defense attorney that defended either one of them and they could be really honest and candid, they would say those tires should not have been on the road, and they shouldn't have been. So I'm sorry that you've got, was it a family friend, did you say?
So this is my colleague's uncle who died in the 90s as his tire blew up.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that happened. Man. I'm angry right now. now I just got angry because that just fires me up to go after these guys. Yeah.
We talked about faith before we hit the record button, and her uncle's story is interesting in such a way that he was a successful guy, loving family man, 7 children, died the day after he finished building a church in their town. Built the church, died next day, before the grand opening.
Wow.
Left 7 kids because of that tire.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, I think back at the clients that I had with that and all the stories and all the great lawyers across the country. I was a newer lawyer in the auto defect arena where that was going on, but I was doing those cases. And again, I've seen all the documents. I mean, they knew. That's why the litigation did so well, and it's too bad it had to do so well because that means they were just so bad. That it was needless deaths on that one. Sometimes accidents happen. The Ford Firestone tire thing, they weren't accidents.
How old were you when the disaster of Pintos happened?
Well, that's great. That was one of the drivers for me to go to law school. I was a kid. Want me to share that story?
Please, absolutely. Well, you go from being a surfer dude, you said long-haired surfer dude,
right,
in California, and then you become an auto defect and personal injury attorney. There's got to be a story there how you go from point A to point B.
Yeah, well, there is. So back in the late 70s, I was long blonde hair, classic California surfer guy, and I was on a surf team in Huntington Beach, and I would surf in pro-ams.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty good. And then, Bob Hurley, the big famous Bob Hurley now of Hurley Sportswear and all that, Back then, I was like,
Okay, that Bob Hurley.
the
Got it.
Bob Hurley.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. He was just a hippie with me. A few years old. I think he was like 21. And I thought, how can a guy that old still surf? So yeah, yeah. Because I think I was like 17. So he was an old man.
Okay.
But he had his little hippie VW bus. He would drive to Wind and See surfboards in Huntington Beach. He had his Maranatha stickers and the fish in the back of his van. He was a Christian, probably. I'm sure he still is. So anyway, I had that background. To be in a suit and tie, this was never going to be Brian Chase. And I had this class, and this will tie into the Ford's blowing up. I had a class in college, and they had us go do an assignment on, back in the 80s, there was a baby called Baby Faye. I think it was 1983, cover of People magazine, all that. They put a baboon heart in this little kid. And the kid and the child lived for like a month or something. And we had to go research that project in the library, and then we had to debate it in front of the class, both sides, pro and con. And that was like the first time in my life that I was at the library for 4 days, all day, in the library, down in the basement, going through all the microfiche, because that's all we had back in those days, no internet. I read everything on microfiche for 4 days that you could possibly uncover that was printed on that story. And this light bulb went off. It goes back to the intellectual stimulation part. I'm like, wow, this is fun. It's exciting. I was dying to get into the library. And I thought, if I ever grow up, this must be what it's like to be an attorney. And then a few years after that, I was aware, and I did see a Ford Pinto blow up on the freeway. I don't know how old I was. I would have been probably late teens, early 20s. I did see one on a freeway blow up, catch on fire. And I remember that litigation. I mean, I was a kid when it happened. But seeing that, and then already having this desire now to go to law school, I thought, you know what? I want to go to law school. I want to be a personal injury attorney. And I want to have an emphasis or a focus on auto defect cases. And so between Baby Faye and getting intellectually stimulated, which ties into my goal of going to law school, and then seeing that Ford Pinto blow up, and then knowing all the dirt behind that. I mean, they could have fixed the car for less than $5 a car, and it was cheaper to pay off. It's called the Ernie Grush memo. I thought, that's what I want to do. So I went to law school to be a PI attorney. I took an extra class for a semester or a year on auto defect or on products liability. And, that's what fired me up to do it.
Super interesting. Have you followed the surgeon who performed that surgery where the baboon heart transplant? He didn't die that long ago, and he became incredibly successful doing exactly that.
I did not know that. So let me interview you for a minute. So that's a great question. So what happened to him? That's interesting.
So I believe he is responsible for saving hundreds of babies with heart defects. He became incredible. I mean, he was already a terrific surgeon at the time of this transplant, which I think was probably like around mid 80s, 83, 85, somewhere thereabout.
Yeah, I think 83, but early 80s. Yeah.
And he went on to practice that type of surgery. And I don't have the numbers, but if I remember correctly, 400 babies, 400 lives were saved because of that guy.
Talk about your life's work mattering. I mean, that's I'm jealous of that. My life's work matters, but wow, good for him. Yeah. And that was crazy surgery back in the 80s.
Oh, no computers, no robots, nothing.
No.
Baboon's heart. Who thought of that?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. You know what? I'm going to go Google that guy later, and I'm inspired to go read about him and see what.
Yeah, I think he may have passed away 2018, 19, like not that long ago.
He wouldn't have been a kid.
Yeah.
Unless he did that heart surgery in the 80s, and he was a kid when he did it, but I don't think they would have let him do that if he was that young. But I don't know.
No, he was probably a newish surgeon, maybe about 40 something. I don't remember him being ancient when he died. Maybe like late 70s.
Okay, that's too early. That's too early.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. So you go from being a surfer to becoming an attorney, to becoming an incredibly successful attorney. You have close to $1 billion recovered to your name, to your law firm's name. You've been around for quite some time. I think that your former partner, who is now retired, he started the firm when I was born in 1978.
Yeah, that's when
And,
he got out of
and
law school and started right out of the gate
okay,
running.
all right, and oh, really? Straight out of law school, he went and he started. Okay,
Yeah,
got it. And you joined
I
also
joined.
upon graduation.
Yeah, I was in college. I met him in 1987. I was in college, went to law school in '89. So I was working for him to see if I was going to like law and
Mm,
that kind of a thing. And then when I got out of law school, I debated, do I go work at a defense firm? Not that I wanted to do that kind of work, but will I get a better education? Because plaintiff
mm.
lawyers are kind of thought of as more fly by the seat of their pants. And, maybe I'll get a better education. And then I worked at a defense firm during the summer and, great people I work with, but I thought, I can't do this. And my mentor was very excited about his first trial, and he's been a lawyer for 7 years. And I'm like, I'm not waiting 7 years to do a trial. So went back with Bisnar, which is probably where it was always going to go anyway. And I had my first 5-day jury trial 6 weeks after passing the bar.
How'd you do?
Won big.
You
I
won?
mean, for a small case, yeah. Scared the living out of me.
But you've done all right since then.
Yeah, no, it's all
Success
been good.
breeds
So,
success.
yeah, so yeah, I've been a lawyer with Bisnar since '92, and then we formed our partnership in '98.
Got it. How large was the firm when you joined?
5 people.
5 people.
Yeah,
This is 33 years ago.
it would have been. It was probably that small even when I got out of law school, but certainly when I was there in college, it was John, another lawyer, no, a receptionist, and a paralegal.
Got it.
Yeah,
Okay. So
yeah,
5 people, and this is his journey from 1978 to 1992. You were number 5 there, right? I mean, I'm sure he's had other employees cycle through before
yeah,
then, but there were
yeah,
a total of 5 of you when you joined.
yeah. It was small shop, working on small cases and learning the trade.
And when did he retire?
So 2015,
Okay,
2016 is when he retired, and
got
he's
it.
living in Maui now and having a great time.
So he was there for 37 years.
Yeah.
And when he retired, how large was the firm, if you recall?
Yeah,
And it was
about
10
40
years,
people.
40 people. And where
Yeah.
are you now?
About the same. It's funny because I never had a goal of I want 100 employees or 200
Hmm.
employees or 5 employees. Just as I was growing the business, it has just plateaued, and that can be a negative word. I don't mean it in a negative way. The firm is just, typically we're going to have, 8 or 9 lawyers and then another 30 support staff, and that's just kind of how it's just kind of leveled out. Now even though it's been that size for probably 10 plus years, the income has not stayed the same for 10 plus years. So, I mean, you get bigger cases, better cases. I hate to say better because even if it's a quote unquote small case, if someone's harmed, they deserve justice. So I don't mean it like that. So it's kind of maxed out at around 40, but financially it just keeps getting bigger and better. And that's exciting as well.
So let's talk about that.
Mhm.
How did you grow and kept on growing? And again, I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's not about the head count. It's
Mhm.
about the top line and the bottom line as we look at it through business prism.
Yeah.
So you started, there were 5 people, including you. How did you grow it over the years? What were the main levers of growth?
Yeah. So, we're not trained in law school that your law firm is a business, but that's
Mhm.
exactly what it is. It's a business. So I've always known that part of it. So like any business, you've got to figure out with whatever your business is, how do you grow your business? And in my particular situation, um, I knew that, if you tried cases and got verdicts, you would get cases from other lawyers because some lawyers don't want to try cases. So we used to do, my analogy is with regard to law firm marketing, and I don't mean literally there's only 10 things you can do, but I arbitrarily say there's 10 things and each one of those only works 10%. There's no silver bullet.
Sure.
There's just no silver bullet. And so one of the things we did was we take last minute trials. So, I was in trial all the time. So I'd get a file on a Friday and there's small cases and I'd go to trial on Monday. So one, doing trials so I can get referrals and business from other lawyers was a big part of it. And then networking, no one knows who you are. So I did every networking organization you can think of, from Rotary to Chamber of Commerce to lawyer networking things, because when you're a personal injury lawyer, every person is a potential client or someone they know. So you have a big market out there. So you just want to get your name out. So the verdicts in that, and then, I got involved in the political organizations. I'm a past president of the California Trial Lawyers Association, which is the largest statewide, I think it's the largest statewide trial lawyer organization around, and also of the Orange County Trial Lawyers. So that really gets your name and your reputation out there. You're speaking a lot. You're doing a lot of good work giving back to other lawyers and helping out. So I really think about, the networking, the political arm, and trying cases was the big ticket items. There's a lot of other things we do with SEO and advertising and all that kind of stuff. But starting out, it was just hit the ground running, shake hands, meet people, try cases.
I also recall, I think it was back on Mike Mogel's podcast, that you mentioned that you earned a reputation of being that crazy lawyer with defense attorneys. What was that all about?
Yeah. Well, I'm not remembering that, so now I'm going to have to go back in the cobwebs and figure out. Well, I do know. And if
I think it was about not accepting. Accepting this amount, not accepting this amount,
You know what? You did your homework, because I was just now thought of, what have I done that was crazy? And I don't know if it's what I said to Mike Mogul, but it is. And that's exactly what I was going to bring up. I had a case in federal court in Albuquerque, New Mexico. And at the end of the day, it was a wrongful death case, and we were going to settle for not a lot of money. It wasn't a great case, had a lot of bad facts, blah, 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 blah. So at the end of the day, we were going to settle that case for $200,000. This was 20 plus years ago. But that's because we had bad facts in the case. I mean, the loss of a life is obviously worth more than that. I probably shouldn't talk about that number on a podcast, but whatever. The story is that I'm a young baby lawyer. But I'm getting a reputation in the auto defect arena, and the auto manufacturer offered me, knowing we were caving, they're going to take two. They offered me $180,000, and thinking, if you're going to take 200, you're going to take 180. And I remember telling them, not going to do it. And it was all very polite. And I said, I'm not taking that. You're grinding me now because you see where we're caving. But that's a bright line. That offer's off the table after today. You think I'm BSing you. We're going to answer ready for trial, and you're going to offer me 200. And I'm going to politely say no. And then you're going to offer me 300. And I'm going to politely say no. And then you're going to offer me, and it went on and on. And I go, now I know you don't believe me right now, but that's what's going to happen. And you just bought a trial. So 6 months later, whatever, answer ready for trial. Judge says, have you guys tried to settle the case? And I go, we have, Your Honor, but we're far apart. The defense goes, we're not that far apart. And they go, where are you at, Mr. Chase? And I go, $1 million or 1.2 million. Well, wait a minute. I thought you were at 200,000. Judge goes, you guys go out in the hallway and try to settle the case. And it went just like that. A little bit more money, a little bit more. Nope. We're trying the case. So it's a great story. It's a true story. And it in my line of work, when you're going after these big companies, they got to know, you mean business, and you can do that in a professional manner, but that you're going to, if you say something, your word is your bond, and you're going to do it. Yeah. I still use that story at mediations when I'm getting jacked around, even to this day.
Listen, it's a great story. So you went from 200 to saying it's $1 million. They didn't accept it. So you went to trial.
Went to trial.
Did you win?
I did not win. So that's the sad part of the story. But you know what? We learned from our losses. I almost won. And now lawyers always have an excuse. Here's where the hard thing about when you're suing, let's just say you've got a 2020 car with a defective roof. If you're arguing that roof is defective, that means all 5 million of those cars on the road are defective. Okay. And I'm fine doing that. And I've won a lot of trials and eight-figure verdicts, et cetera. But the jury was out for like 3 days, maybe the third or fourth day. So I know they're struggling with, I thought I was going to win. And then I get a question from the jury. And they said, can we find this van defective or do we have to find all of them defective? And I knew then I was probably screwed that, okay, I proved my case. They thought this van had a problem, but they weren't willing to say that they all had the same problem. And then a few hours after that, I got the fence. So it was close.
Got it. But those defense lawyers, they knew that you were willing to be
well, and the
play
great
hard.
Well, no, 100%. And, did a good job, kept the jury out, said what I meant what I said, tried the case. And then shortly after that, because I had a lot of cases with this auto manufacturer, I resolved, I don't know, a dozen cases against that manufacturer within a few months after that for reasonable numbers because they realized this wingnut's going to try them all. Yeah. So it all worked out fine in the end, other than I feel terrible for my client that we didn't get her justice. We got her day in court, but we didn't get her the verdict that I'd hoped to get her.
Got it. It is. So here's what I'm hearing. It's very important to be known.
Yeah.
And it's very important to be known for the right thing. Mm-hmm. And it's very important to keep your word.
Yep.
I think a lot of folks in your place 6 months later sooner than 6 months later, would have caved in.
Oh yeah, no. A favorite phrase of mine is, I don't bluff. I'll be working with other lawyers and it's like, hey, let's go tell them this or pound sand. And I go, well, if we're going to do that, let's go do that. But if we're not, I don't ever pull my gun out and say, hey, stop or I'll shoot. And then they don't stop. And I go, I'm just kidding, and put it back in my holster. If I say something and it goes back to that example, I mean it. And a lot of lawyers aren't that way. There are a lot of attorneys that are just bluster. And they'll make their threats. The other side knows who they are. And they know that, it's just a bunch of hot air. So with regard to me, if I tell somebody something, I think I've got a really good relationship with the people that I go up against. And they know that if I say A or B, then I mean A or B. I don't mean C.
I wish more people were like that.
Oh,
in the legal profession,
life would be a lot easier, wouldn't it? If we're
life would be a lot easier.
I consider myself very transparent. I'm like looking through a piece of glass. What you see is what you get, and you're right. Many people are not that way, and then they've got hidden agendas and all the other things that we have to deal with in life. But I try to only associate with people in my personal life that are like that. And frankly, to be honest, most of the defense attorneys that I'm up against, on the auto cases are good people. And they've got a job to do. I've got a job to do, but we can be transparent with each other and do what's best for both of our respective clients. Because I've been doing it so long, and I just see the same people over and over. It's not like I have a different lawyer on a different case for the last 30 plus years. So the transparency has helped.
So you met thousands and thousands and thousands of lawyers over the course of your career, which now spans 33 plus years.
Yeah.
And I have talked to thousands of lawyers over the course of my career.
Yeah.
The one thing that really stood out about you, aside from being a very happy guy and loving what you do, you're a goal setter and you're a voracious reader on the subject of personal development. How did that come into your life? How did you develop it? And now that you're so successful, why do you keep that going? Why do you keep on reading on this matter?
Yeah, well,
why do you keep on setting goals, haven't achieved what you have already achieved?
Yeah, well, I think I've talked about in the past that, when I got out of law school, which was a long time ago, I just set an arbitrary goal of, I want to make $1 million a year. And, if I make $1 million a year, then I've got all the success I need and I can focus on my life's work mattering, intellectual stimulation, and the money part's taken care of. And then you hit that goal and then you set another goal. Then you hit that goal and you set another goal. And I do that for a few reasons. If you like what you do, you want to get up in the morning and go do it. And so I don't do what I do just for money, but there's obviously a monetary component because it can make your life and your family's life easier and you can travel and see a lot of nice stuff. So I've always been motivated to set goals. And if you're hitting all your goals, my argument is you set them too low. And so now you don't want to set them to where you can't ever hit them. And so you can have short-term, mid-term, long-range goals, and I know that you know this. So I am continually setting goals, and I've got some now that I'm like, man, how am I going to do that? But it's one thing that drives me. I'm driven by a lot of things, but it's one thing that drives me. But those, the quote unquote self-help books or the spiritual books or whatever, I love reading about that because you read about other people that have, even if it's a different business, have gone through, will go through the same things that all entrepreneurs do. And that's, what I do. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a businessman, even though I'm in court. And so I enjoy reading those things. It just fires me up. So if you're having a bad day or if you've had a failure, you can go, well, they did too. And so I'm not going to be stopped there. And I don't really try to list things as successes and failures, but when you see people going through struggles, that helps if you're going through a struggle. I don't really think, knock on wood, see that anymore, but you're starting out a business. There's a lot of sleepless nights. And so I really had to read that stuff back in those just to stay fired up. But now, I still continually read, even though the theme is kind of the same. I go back to the first book I read, which has a bad title in today's world, but it was, Think and Grow Rich.
Napoleon Hill. What a classic.
Phenomenal book. And I think they'd probably title it differently in 2025 than Think and Grow Rich. But in those days, because
I wish they wouldn't.
Yeah, well, right. I'm fine with it too. But if you really read the book, and I know that you have, it's not about, it's rich in all aspects of your life, not just making $1, even though it's obviously geared towards that, but it's also relationships and family life and all kinds of things. So that was the first book I read. And what a great book. Just what a great book. And so I would have read that, a long time ago. And I still will reread that one from time to time. I watched 2 days ago, I was at the gym, spinning on a bike, and I was watching a Napoleon Hill video on Think and Grow Rich, just to get kind of fired up. So I love reading that stuff. It just keeps me extra motivated if I need some. But then you can go through, Deepak Chopra, read a bunch of his books. Several Spiritual Laws of Success. I love that book. It's dense, like a book that thick, but it's very thin. I typically will read that every January 1st, or at least read my highlights and just those several, non-attachment and all the things that are in that book. Still read those. And then business books. I'm forgetting who was the CEO of General Electric. He wrote a big
Jack
book.
Welch.
Yeah, great book. I found that to be a great book on kind of more of a business management book. A players, star players, your A, B's, and C's and whatnot. So you always got to keep growing. You don't want to. One of the things I try to teach to younger lawyers or people that, well, if I ever get your success, then this or that or whatever. I'm like, I don't care where you are, whether if you're a baby lawyer just starting your law firm, if you're where I am, and there's plenty of lawyers bigger and way more successful than me. You're always a hamster on a wheel, and you got to keep running. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because if you like what you do, you want to keep doing it. You're a bigger hamster on a bigger wheel, but you got to keep running, meaning running your business, growing intellectually, because if you get off the wheel, you become Fred Flintstone, or you become Blockbuster. Nobody wants to be a Blockbuster. When you're a kid, it's so fun to go get the videos and the candy for movie night. They did not see streaming coming.
They did. They were told. Netflix came to them and tried to sell themselves to Blockbuster. And their executive said, this is a fad. You're going to fail in 6 to 12 months.
Oh, well, I didn't know that. So, I call that the power of no. And so I will take a lot of meetings because I am a hamster on a wheel and I'm not getting off the wheel and I'm not going to become Fred Flintstone. I'm not going to become Blockbuster. And you don't want to be the power of no. There's people I will meet with and I'll talk about something. No. And I'm like, man, you're just the power of no. Now, 9 times out of 10, my answer might be no. But I met with somebody yesterday on some stuff. I want to always see what's out there. I want to keep growing. And so the reading goes along with that, whether it's a business book, sort of a spiritual growth type book. If you like what you do, then that's just part of the fun stuff you get to do is read about that kind of stuff.
It's beautifully said, beautifully said. Now, when I think about growth, once you already achieved a certain pinnacle in life, two elite athletes come to mind. One is Michael Jordan. Fun fact, he and I have lived in the same zip code for a really long time. His house was slightly bigger in Highland Park, Illinois. Mine was slightly smaller, but we're neighbors. We were neighbors.
That's awesome.
So Michael, when he retired from Chicago Bulls, he decided he bought the Hornets and he played there for one season. And that experiment went very badly. He couldn't do anything with that team.
Yeah.
Now, the other example, and he wanted to prove himself with another team, and it did not work out. Another, much more recent example is Tom Brady, who so many fans love and adore, including myself and my oldest son. We always watched New England Patriots work. I call it work, actually. I didn't even call it play because it's work, but they make their work. They used to make their work so beautiful. The whole franchise is just terrific business. So
I
he
was
has
in
done.
Atlanta when I was in Atlanta when they beat my Rams in 2018. I hated him.
You can't hate that guy. He's just so incredibly good. So he does it with New England Patriots, and then he moves to Tampa Bay. And he just does it again. And he gets another ring. Very recently, I learned something about him. For professional sports teams, the total salary cap for the entire team is limited. You have a certain budget, and you have to work with that budget. It's just a remarkable human being where he actually took less pay to get the teammates that he wanted. And I learned about it literally just a few days ago. But here's where I'm driving with this. Let's imagine that today is the day when you decided to sell your law firm. You just sold it very well, and you're like, I'm going to go play in another team. I'm going to start a whole new team. But now you do not want to take years and years and years to get to where you are today. You want to do it fast, like 3 years fast. Get to the same level of revenue. It may take you a little bit longer, but this is your new big, hairy, audacious goal. I forgot who used that BHAG acronym, but big, hairy, audacious goal, and you're going for it. How would you do it?
Man, that's a great question. I wouldn't, which is probably not.
But if you did,
no, I will, and I think that's a great question. It's going to prompt me to think. But the main reason is part of my business is we're all like a family here, and there's been people here for over 20 years, and I couldn't walk away. I mean, someday I'll have to retire, maybe just because of age, and I would walk away. But I wouldn't sell it and then go compete with them. I mean, I would feel like a traitor. But setting that aside, if I had to do it now. Man, that's a great question. I mean,
in a different market, nobody knows you. You do not have your reputation. Nobody knows you.
Yeah. So you're saying so not even doing personal injury cases?
Oh, you can do personal injury. Just a completely different market. Nobody knows you. You start ground zero.
I would. Yeah, I mean, I would probably do a lot of the same things I did now. I mean, one is, if you're doing personal injury but nobody knows you, one way to get known is you got to get verdicts. I mean, the lawyers that do personal injury that are really, really successful have verdicts. Now, that's not easy to get. In 1 year, you're not going to get 5 mega verdicts. But one is, I would do just what I did 33 years ago, is I would start trying cases in that area, let people know that I'm trying cases, so I can get attorney referrals on people that don't want to try cases. And if I sold my law firm, I would have the money to finance those cases. And in networking, I mean, I would, if I was in a different state and somebody didn't know me there, I would get involved in the legal political organizations. And there's two reasons to do that. It's great for business, but it's also good to give back. Going back to the spiritual component. I mean, I think, give that which you seek. I like to help lawyers younger than me. One of the things I like about being involved in the legal political arena is you can help shape litigation or stop litigation that's trying to harm consumers. So I would do that, but it's also great networking to get your name out there. And man, that's a tough question. I mean, verdicts are the biggest asset, but it takes time to get those. And if I had to start short term and have a successful law firm in a few years, I'd probably try more cases in a given year than I would want to try, because you're not going to win. If you try 10 cases, you're not going to get 10 big verdicts, and you might get 3 big ones and 5 decent ones and a couple lousy ones. So Probably the same thing I did a long time ago, but it didn't. It took longer than 3 years before, and if nobody knew me now, it would take longer than 3 years now. But
100%.
yeah, I don't think I had a very good answer for you on that. I'm
No,
sorry.
no, it's good. But I'm curious. So you said that you do, or your law firm does 10 different marketing things, and each one of them does about 10% of the whole thing.
Right.
What are your best marketing levers?
Yeah. So, and I just arbitrarily made that up. I don't know how many.
Sure.
I'm sure it's more than 10. But
Yeah.
the point of the story is obviously there's no silver bullet. If there was, we would all be shooting that silver bullet out of our gun. With regard to marketing, is again, I speak publicly. Because now I have the reputation, so I go around the country and speak. That's a marketing component. Whenever I speak somewhere, I get some business. We've got ads in all the lawyer magazines. The bulk of my business is attorney referred cases that come to me. So I've got a brand. I've had the same ad, maybe not the same content, but kind of the same ad, where I'm sitting there like this, and it's kind of in black and white and blah 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 blah. But it's branded like Pepsi Cola. You don't change your brand. So we do ads. Can't really track what you get from that, but every now and then someone will say you've got that. So we've got ads, public speaking, verdicts, social media, which we didn't have in the old days. Now, obviously, on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, all the things. We'll run our ads or videos. I'll do videos and that kind of stuff on all the social media. Still involved in the legal political organizations because that. Again, it's good to give back, but it's also good for business.
You get
and, the SEO stuff, which I know you know a lot about, is we've got our own in-house SEO team. So we're always meeting on various things to be doing, whether it's with regard to the website or videos for YouTube or whatever. Those are the main ones that come to mind with regard to, what we do to keep the name or the brand out there. And then, but one of the biggest components, and I think people miss this all the time, is the people are what matter. Without my team, all those bullets are just blanks.
Yeah.
You've got to have a good culture, run your law firm like a business and have a good culture and have people bought in. And we treat our folks very well. I don't feel like they're employees. I feel like I've got 40 partners or 39 partners.
I love that.
I don't like the boss card. We set realistic goals, not crazy goals. If you hit this, just to make me a lot of money, I look at people's caseloads. I come up with a reasonable value, and if you hit that target, I'll send. You and your spouse will go to Maui. It used to be you go to Maui for a week. If the firm hits its goals, the whole law firm goes. Not at the same time. You can go whenever you want. And people got sick of going to Maui because they're hitting their goals. So now they get to pick and choose where they want to go. So I do want to bring it back to answer your question. Those are kind of the big ticket items we do, with the advertising and the SEO. But it really comes back to the culture. You've got to have your team bought in because you cannot have a smooth running machine without a bunch of star players. And you can't have star players unless they're happy and they want to work for you. It's like if you're a good coach, when you're a kid, there's sometimes you want to take a hit for that coach. You want your teammates to take a hit for you because I will take a hit for them.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. So beautifully said. Last question. Thinking back 33 years ago, what advice would you give that much younger self? One most important advice.
Man, I don't know that I've ever been asked that. That's such a great question. There's probably a bunch of good answers I could come up with. But let me just, man, that I don't even want to be stumped on that, but everybody's always got a good answer for that. And I don't. I mean, if I think about, I always think of everything as just so hunky dory. I'm trying to think, well, what did I screw up that I should? And obviously, that's not true. I just bury that stuff and I focus on the positive. I would have. Well, you mean much longer, like right when I graduated, or before that, just younger,
or at any point of your life, earlier. When you graduated?
I'll tell you, one thing is I wish I would have started sooner. I mean, I had 10 years off where I really had a great time, surfing and doing all of that. And I don't regret that at all. But, starting a little sooner, but that's not really what you're driving at. I mean, I've always just been so passionate about doing this. I mean, if I would think about something that maybe I would do differently, it wouldn't have been when I was starting out because I was real driven and real motivated. But it's really easy. And this is the balance that lawyers have to go through when you're an associate. Okay. When it was Bisnar and Associates, you'll go try everything. You'll try anything. You've got
Mm-hmm.
nothing at stake other than time, and you just want to go try everything. You know, then when you're an equity partner, and this would be true in all law firms, is now you have money at stake, and you can't not try a case because of the risk to you. And so but are there a few cases that it's a wobbler that I wish I could have tried? Not because I needed the money from it. I know there's a great lawyer a long time ago that and I've done this older in life. Maybe I should have done it sooner. Is I know a guy that had a big offer on a case, but he was just a very rich lawyer. And so he told the client, let's try it. I think I can do better. And if I can't, I'll pay you what you would have got out of the settlement anyway, if you're willing to go to trial. Really putting his money where his mouth was. You know, do I wish maybe on a couple of cases I thought, you know what, if the client's on board, I'm going to just take a flyer on this. And if we lose, I'll pay the client X, whatever X is. I don't think that's really a good answer. I'm going to get hammered by people for that answer, but I'm having a hard time thinking on what I would do differently.
You may
I need
be.
to lay on the couch and talk to a shrink on why I can't come up with something I've done wrong.
I think I have the answer for that, and you and I barely
You
know
probably
each
do.
other.
You're more articulate than I am.
But here's what no. But here's what I'm thinking. Before we hit the record button, you mentioned that you're very lucky, and we talked about what fuels you and the fact that you're a very happy person. You may be one of very few people who has actually done most of the things right. It is possible. It's very rare. But if you cannot think back 30, 40 years and give yourself like a major advice, life-changing advice,
Yeah.
it's quite possible that you just got very lucky and did most of the big things right.
Well, I'm never going to concede that point. I like that answer a lot better than I'm burying emotions, but
Probably
I
not.
I have been very lucky and blessed because I didn't earn the right to be happy. Some people have to work at that, and I feel terrible for that. I did one little silly example. And this is just how my life has been, and it's nothing I can recall being taught by my parents or anything. I remember my sixth grade graduation and standing on stage with my sixth grade graduating class and singing, We've Only Just Begun, this old Carpenter song.
Mm-hmm.
But I remember as we were doing the rehearsals, and then my mom's in the audience and my grandparents, and saying, hey, Brian, focus on this experience. It's never going to happen to you again. You're never going to be a sixth grader. You're never going to have this moment.
Okay.
And appreciate it. And I thought nothing of it. And I've kind of lived my life that way. And then when I got a little bit older, I go, how does a sixth grader, maybe that happens to a handful of people. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I've never, but it's just like, I do feel like I've just been really lucky, so maybe I know I've done more right than wrong. And, I'll stick with your answer. Lucky.
Brian Chase, congratulations.
Yeah.
You won the life lottery.
Yeah, no, that sounds, no, because I've got a lot of goals I haven't hit, so I haven't hit that yet. But no, I have won the life lottery, just with the happy gene.
Some people just win multiple lotteries.
Yeah. Well, I'll take it. I don't necessarily believe in, I don't know anything about like reincarnation and that, but just to use it as a silly example, I'm having so much fun on this life, and I have from as young as I can remember till right now talking to you. If there is a thing as reincarnation, I must have been a Roman gladiator in a past life and eaten by lions. And the good Lord said, Brian, I'm going to give you a good run this time.
Maybe as a token of appreciation for all of this, one day when you have the time, you'll sit down and write a book.
Yeah, I have written a couple books on auto defects, but on what we're talking about.
I saw those, but I'm actually talking about living like a really happy life.
Yeah, no, that's a good idea.
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
I had very successful attorney on this podcast just a few weeks ago. And my memory fails me at the moment. I don't remember his name, but it will come to me shortly. And what's remarkable about him and his law firm and so many other businesses that he had started or purchased and operates as a CEO, his entire family works with him. He's like, I love my brothers and I love my sisters. There are like 5 siblings. And my dad works with me. And my mom works with me. And my dad's wife works with me. His parents are divorced. And my uncles work with me.
Wow.
And I'm like, dude, you got to write a book. And he's like, about what? And I'm like, about your, I'm sorry, I didn't say you got to write a book. I said, you got to go to your parents and convince them to write a book. It's like, about what? Like, they got to teach the world how to create such happy, loving children.
Yeah, no doubt
That's
about
just
that.
so rare.
No, it is. I mean, I know a few people that work together, but yeah, when you say that story and it's working,
Oh, it's
that is
working.
very, very, I talk about my luck. Okay, that guy, he's lucky too.
Incredibly.
Yeah,
He's 45, incredibly successful.
yeah,
And he's just like, we all love each other and we're happy working together. And I'm like, go to your parents. His dad was a truck driver. He's like, my dad would never do this. I'm like, interview him. Hire someone to interview him.
yeah, yeah,
Ghostwriter. They'll write a book and it will be like how to raise a family where kids love each other. Okay, parents
yeah.
have done so much right.
Big
So
time. I mean, that's a whole nother
a
success level.
whole
That
of
yeah,
hundred
that's good stuff.
100%.
Yeah.
Brian, thank you. Just
No,
thank
thank
you.
you. No, I enjoyed this. This was really great interaction. No, thank you.
Yeah.
Wish I wouldn't have blown that one answer, but you give me
No,
some.
but you didn't.
Yeah,
In my heart, I don't believe that you did.
what piece of advice would I give myself? Have an answer to that question next. There it is. There's my failure. Today I failed. Thank you, Sasha.
Let that be the biggest failure in your life.
Amen, brother. Amen, man.
Brian,
Yeah.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Sasha. My pleasure. I appreciate you.